the African History Network, the African History Network, and our YouTube channel, Michael Imhotep, Imhotep. It is Monday, January 10th, 2022, and we are live. All right, we had a very busy weekend, and we didn't broadcast this Sunday. I was on Roland Martin Unfiltered on Friday, so I'm going to share a segment from Roland Martin Unfiltered, and then also we know this past Thursday, January 6th, and we found out the next day, we found out January 7th, that legendary actor and also director Sidney Poitier passed away at age 94. So we're going to talk some about Sidney Poitier and his legacy and some of his history as well. I was going to broadcast on Sunday, but I was tired, and I taught a 3-hour class on Sunday also, another installment of Ancient Kemet, the Moors, and the Ma'afa, understanding the transatlantic slave trade, what they didn't teach you in school. So I taught another installment of that, and I was working on some other things. So I said, okay, we'll deal with this on Monday's show. Now, also, when I was on Roland Martin Unfiltered, we also dealt with the 3 white men who were convicted of killing Ahmad Arbery. Okay, Gregory met Michael, Travis met Michael, and William Roddy Bryan. We know on Friday they were convicted. I'm sorry, on Friday they were sentenced based upon the conviction of killing Ahmad Arbery. Okay, we're going to talk about the sentencing as well. I dealt with this on, we talked about this on Roland Martin Unfiltered. Okay, now on the African History Network show, we focus on educating, empowering, and inspiring people of African descent throughout the diaspora and around the world, because right now it's correct your own behavior. What you do for yourself, what you do to yourself, and what you allow other people to do to you and get away with is based upon what you think about yourself. What you think about yourself is based upon what you have been taught about yourself. What you've been taught about yourself is based upon everything you've read, heard, and seen about yourself. So when you control the radius of a man or woman's thoughts, you can control the compass of his or her actions, because the mind can't do or teach what it doesn't know. Now, we deal with a number of different topics here on the African History Network show. We deal with current events and history and politics, education, economic empowerment, entrepreneurship, relationships, love, sex, health issues, and much, much more. All right, so we're going to jump into this topic. Now, you can give us a call and share your memories that you have as well regarding Sidney Poitier. Calling numbers 313-778-7600 is the call-in number if you have a question or comment. 313-778-7600 is the call-in number if you have a question or comment. And we're also broadcasting on our Facebook fan page, The African History Network, The African History Network, and our YouTube channel, Michael Imhotep, Imhotep. So turn on live notifications there also. Okay. I want to jump it. So New York Times had a really good article dealing with Sidney Poitier and his legacy. It was a big piece from the New York Times. Sidney Poitier, who paved the way for Black actors in film, dies at 94. Okay, but we also know he was involved in the civil rights movement. He helped raise money. He and Harry Belafonte and others helped raise money for the civil rights movement as well. He was friends with Dr. King. So, I mean, he was, many people describe him as a Renaissance man. So this is a significant loss, okay, when it comes to being a humanitarian, when it comes to film and breaking down barriers. And, you know, people remember him from, especially 1967 was probably his biggest year, when he starred in The Heat of the Night. He also starred in Guess Who's Coming to Dinner, and also To Sir with Love. And I remember watching all those back in the 70s. I wasn't born in 67, but I remember watching all those movies in the 1970s. Okay, so if we look at this article here from NBC News, this one here is from New York Times. And we're going to go to clip 1 here in just a second, Shakita, that I just sent you. Sidney Poitier, who paved the way for Black actors, dies at 94. The first African-American performer to win the Academy Award for Best Actor for the 1963 movie Lilies of the Field. He once said he felt, quote, as if I were representing 18 million people with every movie I made. Okay. So that's a lot of responsibility. That's a lot of weight on you. All right. So Sidney Poitier, whose portrayal of resolute heroes in films like To Serve with Love and The Heat of the Night and Guess Who's Coming to Dinner established him as Hollywood's first Black matinee idol and helped open the door for African-American actors in the film industry. We know he passed away on Thursday, January 6th at his home in Los Angeles, California. He was 94 years old. Now, his death was confirmed by Eugene Torchin Nuri, acting director general of the Ministry for Foreign Affairs in the Bahamas, where Sidney Poitier grew up. So far, no cause of death has been given. He was 94 years old also. Could very well be just natural causes. So Sidney Poitier, whose Academy Award, although often simmering, and I want to pull this picture up here also, although often simmering with repressed anger, okay, let's go to this here. Although often simmering with repressed anger, characters responded to injustice with quiet determination. They met hatred with reason and forgiveness, sending a reassuring message to white audiences and exposing Sidney Poitier to attack as an Uncle Tom when the civil rights movement took a more militant turn in the late 1960s. So that was criticism that he got even for, the movie Guess Who's Coming to Dinner. And he was engaged to a white woman in the movie as well. It dealt with interracial marriage and things like this. But nonetheless, it was these roles back in. So oftentimes when we look at the roles that are played, we look at them from today's standards as opposed to the standards in the era that the films were made. Okay. And, I remember seeing the movie In the Heat of the Night from 1967. I remember seeing that in the 1970s and how that was such a significant role in the 1970s. He goes down to Mississippi and he's a detective, African-American detective from Philadelphia. Okay. And he's dealing with this white supremacist, this bigoted police chief, okay, Chief Gillespie, played by Rod Steiger. And as he navigates throughout this racism in Mississippi, we all remember when they go to the greenhouse, when they go to the house of Endicott. Endicott owns this plantation, and the scene where Endicott, the white man, slaps Sidney Poitier, and Sidney Poitier slaps him back. Okay, now I posted that clip on our Facebook fan page, the African History Network, the day that we found out he passed away. And I said this was the slap heard around the world. This was the slap heard around the world, because I'm sure there's a whole lot. I mean, this is during the Civil Rights Movement, 1967, 2 years after Malcolm X is assassinated. And this was the year before Dr. King was assassinated. Okay. And it's in Mississippi, Money, Mississippi, August 28th, 1955, that Emmett Till is killed. Okay. So that was a slap heard around the world. And I could just imagine in the movie theaters when Sidney Poitier slapped a white man back, I could just imagine African Americans just clapping probably for the next 10, 15 minutes, right? We'll deal with this on the other side of the break. Listen to the African History Network show. I'm Michael Imhotep. We'll be back in a few minutes.
What does self-care mean to you? To us, it's an opportunity to reconnect with nature. A chance to create something remarkable. At Sage and Elm Apothecary, our handcrafted skincare and household products immerse you in Earth's sweetest nectar, connecting you to nature in a way you never imagined. See for yourself and visit us at sageandelmapothecary.com.
The work that I do is larger than the fashion industry. It's larger than the art world. And I believe that I was born to bring newness into this world. I'm Kaima McIntyre. I'm 24 years old and I'm an artist. I create everything from paintings to jewelry design, metaphysical jewelry to be specific, and fashion design. The only reason why my prom dress went viral is because people needed it. Within a few days of going viral, Notori Naughton reached out to me and she's like, I saw your dress, can you make me a dress? I was equally as shocked to be asked by a celebrity to design their dress at the age of 17. That's just one person, and the list just continues to go on to Janet Jackson, to Tyra Banks. It really hits home. That means that the discussion is happening on the grounds in real time.
History and politics, education, economic empowerment, entrepreneurship, relationships, love, sex, health issues, and much, much more. Unfortunately, many people confuse what racism is. Racism is a power structure. It was laws and policies that put us in this predicament. It's going to be laws and policies that take us out. So when you control the radius of a man or woman's thoughts, you can control the compass of his or her actions, because the mind can't do or teach what it doesn't know.
We have it all on 910 AM Superstation.
Welcome back to the African History Network show right here on 910 AM, the Superstation Feature Radio. I'm your host, Brother Michael Imhotep. It is Monday, January 10th, 2021, and we are live. All right, if you still need to register for the online courses I teach on Saturdays and Sundays, if you missed class this past Sunday, January 9th, visit our website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. We had a great class. On Sunday, I ended up doing almost 3 hours. It was about 2 hours and 54 minutes, 2 hours, 55 minutes, something like that. Ancient Kemet, the Moors, and the Ma'afa, understanding the transatlantic slave trade, what they didn't teach you in school. We deal with thousands of years of history and what leads up to the transatlantic slave trade taking place. So visit our website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. You can register for the class. As soon as you register, you can watch the class we did this past Sunday, and we have a special bundle pack on sale right now, only $70, because the class is regularly $130 each, but we have a special bundle pack. You can register for both classes for only $70. So from the Civil War to the Civil Rights Movement and Black Power, 1865 to 1968, and then also understanding the transatlantic slave trade, what they didn't teach you in school, Ancient Kemet, the Moors, and the Ma'afa. All right. Calling numbers 313-778-7600. We're talking about Sidney Poitier and the legacy of Sidney Poitier. We got the news on Friday, January 7th, that he had passed away the night before, the evening before. And, you know, I can remember going, so the past couple of days I've been going back through watching a piece of the action. I finished watching a piece of the action today, Sidney Poitier and Bill Cosby. And then yesterday I watched I watched the piece of the action yesterday, and I started watching Let's Do It Again last night and finished watching Let's Do It Again today. And then Let's Do It Again, Bootney Farnsworth. It has Jimmy J.J. Walker and John Amos, in the movie. So, I mean, these are classic movies. They made 3 classic movies, Uptown Saturday Night, both with Calvin Lockhart, and Let's Do It Again with Calvin Lockhart also. And you have a piece of the action Bill Cosby and Sidney Poitier, and it has James Earl Jones and James Earl Jones is in there as well. So these are classic movies. All right. So he passed away Thursday night in Los Angeles at his home. Denise Nicholas is in 2 of the movies. She's in A Piece of the Action and Uptown Saturday Night. Okay. Wait a second. She's in A Piece of the Action and Let's Do It Again. Okay. Denise Nicholas. All right. Who used to be on Room 222 back in the 1970s, early 1970s. I remember that show also, Room 222, which is about high school teachers. Okay. I want to go to this clip here. Let's go to clip number 1, Shakita. This is the clip when we got the news from MSNBC that Sidney Poitier had passed away.
Some breaking news to share with you this morning. NBC News has confirmed that legendary actor Sidney Poitier is dead at the age of 94. Poitier was the first black man to win the Academy Award for Best Actor. In 2009, he was awarded the Presidential Medal of Freedom. NBC's Joe Fryer takes a look back at Poitier's legacy.
They call me Mr. Tibbs.
Sidney Poitier played characters who jumped off the screen. Opposite Rod Steiger in The Heat of the Night.
Now, where did you earn it? I'm a police officer. Amen.
And in The Lilies of the Field as handyman Homer Smith.
Lots of luck, mother. I ain't building no chapel.
Yeah, you. The role that won him the first ever lead actor Oscar for an African American.
It is a long journey to this moment.
Raised in the Bahamas, he'd moved to Harlem as a teenager and endured the usual hardscrabble climb to an actor's life. Then came No Way Out, the groundbreaking 1950 Joseph Mankiewicz film about racism.
You watch yourself, black boy. Watch how you talk to me.
Just shut up.
Poitier played a doctor. In a performance so powerful, the film was credited with ending British colonial rule in the Bahamas. The intense 22-year-old performer, Hollywood, had its first African-American screen star.
Why you black? Go ahead and say it.
A first he would later point out that was too long in coming.
If we are 40 million Americans, we certainly ought to have more than one movie star.
Maybe I'll get down on my black knees.
But he wasn't just a movie star. He was the embodiment of a proud and dignified black point of view in the American conversation about race that accelerated along with the civil rights movement. In '67, he reached Hollywood's mountaintop, its top-earning leading man as Virgil Tibbs, righteous enough to slap in return the white politician who slapped him.
There was a time when I could have had you shot.
And in Guess Who's Coming to Dinner is Dr. John Prentice, half of an interracial couple, telling his disapproving father times have changed.
I'm your son. I love you. But you think of yourself as a colored man. I think of myself as a man.
In the 70s, he moved from acting to directing. Some critics said he played the same role too many times.
Okay, let's get out of here.
And as a director, he was a moneymaker with hits like Stir Fry and his buddy movies with Bill Cosby.
Our whole nation totters on the brink of disaster.
But his enduring image is of a man and actor of principle. No surprise he would play Mandela. A man whose existence among us made racism less palatable, as he noted after receiving a Lifetime Achievement Oscar.
Not because I brought so much, but because the time was right. Circumstances were right.
The time has come.
Sidney Poitier, the right man for his time. Joe Fryer, NBC News.
To serve with love.
All right. Oh, go ahead. Let it play.
The Poitier's life story will soon be coming to Broadway.
Okay. So he passed away at age 94. There was a story from People Magazine. I'm going to bring this up also here. From People Magazine, we know that he and Harry Belafonte were lifelong friends. Harry Belafonte's one of his daughters said that he wasn't taking Sidney Poitier's passing too well. He was taking it really hard. I'm going to bring that article up also. We'll try to get that. I posted that on our Facebook fan page, The African History Network. Okay, so a movie that I talk about in the online classes that I teach, and the movie that I've been talking about recently is Buck and the Preacher. Buck and the Preacher, starring Harry Belafonte. It was starring Sidney Poitier and Harry Belafonte. Okay, and Buck and the Preacher takes place during Reconstruction. Okay, and it's about this wagon train of African Americans, former slaves, and they're going out west into the Kansas territory. And Buck, played by Sidney Poitier, is a scout, and he's has to negotiate with Native Americans to let them through territory that Native Americans control. And they're dealing with white supremacists who are trying to attack the wagon train and send them back where they came from, things like this, right? And Harry Belafonte plays the preacher, this con man preacher, and they have to unite and deal with these white people who are trying to turn back the wagon train, okay? And Ruby Dee stars in it also. It's a really, really good movie, Buck and the Preacher. I've seen it a number of times. And you're dealing with a period of history where this migration out west really did happen. Now, Buck and the Preacher takes place in the late 1860s, okay? But in 1879, you had what's known as the Exodus, the Exodus, or the Black Exodus, into Kansas in 1879. And these were African Americans primarily leaving. There's about 6,000 of them in 1879 that go out to Kansas, and they're leaving Louisiana and Texas primarily, and some other southern states, around the southern states, but especially the Louisiana and Texas. And this was after Democrats took back control of the state house, the state legislature, I should say, the state legislature in statewide government in Louisiana in the 1878 statewide election. Okay. And because of those circumstances, you're going to have a lot of African Americans leaving from Louisiana, but also from Texas. It's about 6,000 of them in 1 year going to Kansas, and is known as the Exodus, or also known as the Black Exodus, and they were called Exodusters. So it's very similar to what you see depicted in the movie Buck and the Preacher, but Buck and the Preacher is a few years before that. Okay. We're going to continue this on the other side of the break. So there was this article from people.com, and Harry Belafonte's daughter says Sidney Poitier's death is most difficult. Let me pull this up here. Harry Belafonte's daughter says Sidney Poitier's death is most difficult thing he's had to fathom. Sherry Belafonte is revealing how the Oscar winner's passing is affecting her dad after their decades-long friendship. Okay, so we'll talk about this on the other side of the break. Listen to the African History Network show. I'm Michael Imhotep. We'll be back in a few minutes. iRedify is a Black-owned digital platform that showcases Black and Brown cultures and people. The books on the platform are written by African American authors, Afro-Caribbean authors, African authors, and so much more. Kids 14 and under can read ebooks, listen to audiobooks, and complete learning activities. Kids can even write in the books digitally. Get unlimited access to everything on the platform for only $8.99 a month at iRedify.com. Sign up for your membership today.
Mental health and well-being have long been a taboo subject in the so-called African American community. So I enlisted the help of mental health experts, thought leaders, and activists to help kill the ghost of Willie Lynch and heal from post-traumatic slave syndrome.
We experience trauma a lot of times on a subconscious level. So sometimes something happens to us and we know that it's traumatizing, but we don't really recognize the extent of the trauma.
910, the Superstation, Detroit's only African-American talk radio.
Welcome back to the African History Network show right here on 910 AM, the Superstation, Feature Radio. I'm your host, Brother Michael Imhotep. It is Monday, January 10th, 2022, and we are live. Right before the break, we were talking about the passing of Sidney Poitier, and I was talking about the movie Buck and the Preacher. Okay, I've seen it a number of times, and I talk about this movie in my one of the classes that I teach, from the Civil War to the Civil Rights Movement and Black Power, 1865 to 1968, because even though Buck and the Preacher takes place in the late 1860s, it takes place after slavery ends in 1865. It's during Reconstruction, but it is it's very similar to the Exodus of 1879, where you have about 6,000 African Americans going out north. And it's also you'll see it referred to as the Exodus or the Black Exodus, and they're going out west, I should say, into Kansas. Okay, it's the Exodus of 1879. And I was going to bring up an article here dealing with this. But you're going to have about 6,000 African Americans during that year going to Kansas, and they're looking for a better way of life. These are most of them former slaves. There's a piece from National Park Services, nps.gov, National Park Services, and this deals with the Exodus of 1879. And in Buck and the Preacher, this is a wagon train of African Americans going out to Kansas. Exodusters, they were called exodusters. Okay. In 1879, an African American man from Louisiana wrote a letter to the governor of Kansas that read in part, "I am very anxious to reach your state, not just because of the great race now made for not just because of the great race now made for it, but because of the sacredness of her soil washed by the blood of humanitarians for the cause of Black freedom." And they go through and they talk about they deal with the post-Civil War era, but they deal with Black migration to Kansas prior to the Great Exodus. Then they talk about the Exodus of 1879. The Great Exodus of African Americans was largely influenced by the outcome of the 1878 elections in the state of Louisiana, in which, let me scroll back up here, state of Louisiana, in which the Democratic Party made major gains by winning several congressional seats and the governorship, So now this is 2 years after the Compromise of 1877 that has ended Reconstruction. All right. So in Buck and the Preacher, it's taking place during Reconstruction in the late 1860s. The actual Great Exodus or Black Exodus of 6,000 African Americans going out to Kansas took place after 2 years after Reconstruction ended. Freed Blacks, largely Republican supporters, were coerced, threatened, assaulted, and even murdered to keep them away from the ballot box. When the final tallies were in and the Democrats claimed almost total victory, many Black Louisianans knew that the time had come for them to abandon their state and join those already in Kansas. Okay, read the rest of this here. This deals with the Black Exodus of 1879. Exodusters, this is at nps.org, National Park Service. Okay, so there's so many movies that Sidney Poitier is known for. Three of my favorite are, well, four of them are In the Heat of the Night, which became a TV series. And also Let's Do It Again, Sidney Poitier and Bill Cosby. Those three movies. Now, they should have made, I think they should have made more movies. Those are some hilarious movies. Okay. And then in A Piece of the Action, no, and Let's Do It Again, you had George Foreman in the movie. In the day is George Foreman's birthday also. You had George Foreman in the movie. And also Jane Kennedy is in the beginning of the movie as well, right? So I like those two movies. Now, A Piece of the Action and Let's Do It Again, I probably like more than Uptown Saturday Night because Denise Nicholas is in A Piece of the Action and Let's Do It Again. Okay. All right, so let's go back to let me go back to this one here. This is a really good article from the New York Times. We're going to go to clip 2 here in just a second. Shakita from Roland Martin Unfiltered. So the Defiant Ones in 1958. So some of the movies that Sidney Poitier was in dealt with race, but it dealt with it from a perspective of the African-American character being more being maybe you would say it as being less militant as maybe some people wanted. In the Defiant Ones, which came out in 1958, it was a racial fable that established Sidney Poitier as a star and earned him an Academy Award nomination for Best Actor. He was a prisoner on the run, handcuffed to a fellow convict who was a virulent racist, played by Tony Curtis. The Best Actor award came in 1964 for his performance in the low-budget film Lilies of the Field as an itinerant handyman helping a group of German nuns build a church in the southwestern desert. Now, you would think he gets nominated for Best Actor for In the Heat of the Night. He wasn't nominated for In the Heat of the Night. Okay, he was nominated in 64 for Lilies of the Field, which came out before In the Heat of the Night, which in 67 was probably his biggest year because he's in three. He was the biggest earning leading man in 67, and he was in three big movies: To Sir with Love, In the Heat of the Night, and Guess Who's Coming to Dinner. In 1967, Sidney Poitier appeared in three of Hollywood's top grossing films, elevating him to the peak of his popularity. Quote, in the Heat of the Night placed him opposite Rod Steiger as an indolent, bigoted sheriff with whom Virgil Tibbs, the Philadelphia detective played by Sidney Poitier, must work on a murder investigation in Mississippi. In an indelible line, the detective insists on the sheriff's respect when he declares, "They call me Mr. Tibbs." So even though in some of the roles, Sidney Poitier may not have been as quote unquote militant or forceful as some people wanted him to be, even within the context of Virgil Tibbs demanding, because the police chief Gillespie calls him boy. Okay. And they're in Mississippi. Mississippi is the state that had the most number of lynchings from 1882 to 1968. They had 581 lynchings in Mississippi. They have more lynchings in Mississippi than any other state in the Union. So when he says, "Don't call me boy," and he says, "Well, what do they call you then?" He said, "They call me Mr. Tibbs," right? I mean, this is like really striking a blow for the humanity of African Americans during the Civil Rights Movement. This is the year before Dr. King's assassinated. This is 2 years after the Voting Rights Act is passed. 3 years after the Civil Rights Act is passed, a year before Dr. King's assassinated. This is in the same year that Dr. King and Muhammad Ali both come out in opposition to the Vietnam War. Okay. And it was the March 30th, 1967. There was a press conference. Well, it was, you call it a press conference or interview. The Associated Press did an interview with Muhammad Ali and Dr. King because they had just had a meeting, and they came out of the meeting and they're talking to the press. And they both addressed their opposition to the Vietnam War. Then next month, April 1967, is going to be a really turbulent month because April 4th, 1967, Dr. King delivers his speech Beyond Vietnam, coming out really in opposition to the Vietnam War and doing a speech in opposition to the Vietnam War. He's assassinated exactly 1 year to the date that he gave that speech Beyond Vietnam. He was assassinated April 4th, 1968. Then late April 67, Muhammad Ali refuses to be drafted into the military. He refuses to take the step forward to be drafted into the army. All right. So all this is in the same year that they call me the In the Heat of the Night comes out as well. Okay. So, and then once again, when Sidney Poitier slaps Endicott in Mississippi in the heat of the night, that was the slap heard around the world. There's a whole lot of African Americans that want to slap back but couldn't. There's a lot of us that wanted to slap back and fight back but couldn't. Okay, so if we go back to this article, we're coming up here on the break. When we come back from the break, I'm gonna let you hear a clip from Roland Martin Unfiltered. So in To Serve with Love, he was coerced. He was concerned. He was a concerned teacher in a tough London high school. And in Guess Who's Coming to Dinner, a taboo breaking film about an interracial couple, he played a doctor whose race tests the liberal principles of his prospective in-laws, played by Spencer Tracy and Katharine Hepburn. So I remember watching all these movies in the 1970s on TV. And I remember going to see a piece of the action. Uptown Saturday Night. I remember going to see Uptown Saturday Night in the 1970s at the drive-in theater with my parents. And I was sitting in the back seat. They were in the front seat. And I remember the scene where Sidney Poitier is on the bridge. He jumps off the bridge to get the briefcase that has the lottery ticket in it. And Bill Cosby says, "Hey, fool, you can't swim." Right? I remember that as well. All right, you listen to the African History Network show. I'm Michael Imhotep. We'll be back in a few minutes.
Mental health and well-being have long been a taboo subject in the so-called African American community. So I enlisted the help of mental health experts, thought leaders, and activists to help kill the ghost of Willie Lynch and heal from post-traumatic slave syndrome.
We experience trauma a lot of times on a subconscious level. So sometimes something happens to us and we know that it's traumatizing, but we don't really recognize the extent of the trauma.
What does self-care mean to you? To us, it's an opportunity to reconnect with nature. A chance to create something remarkable. At Sage and Elm Apothecary, our handcrafted skincare and household products immerse you in Earth's sweetest nectar, connecting you to nature in a way you never imagined. See for yourself and visit us at sageandelmapothecary.com.
Welcome back to the African History Network show right here on 910 AM, the Superstation Future Radio. Okay, right before the break, we were talking about the passing of Sidney Poitier. And there is, we were talking about this extensive article from the New York Times dealing with his legacy. But there was an article from the Washington Post also that I read. I read a few different articles on Sidney Poitier. There was one from the Washington Post. Sidney Poitier, first black man to win Oscar for Best Actor, dies at 94. Now, this one here is from the Washington Post. And they talk about on page 4, I think it is, or page, which page is that? 6. Page 2. They talk about the movie In the Heat of the Night and the scene where he slaps Endicott. Okay. And it was Sidney Poitier who changes this scene. He talks about this in his in his memoir, The Measure of a Man, that came out in the year 2000. And let me see something here. I want to go to this right here. Okay, so the chief played, let's back up. Perhaps his most enduring and defining part was Virgil Tibbs, an experienced Philadelphia homicide detective who helps a bigoted white Mississippi police chief in a murder investigation in the movie In the Heat of the Night, 1967. The film marked the first appearance of a black law enforcement hero in a mainstream Hollywood movie. This movie, 1967, once again, a lot of times we want to judge movies based upon today's standards as opposed to the standards back at the time, because this was groundbreaking back in 1967. Okay, this film marked the first appearance of a black law enforcement hero in a mainstream Hollywood movie, and he's a detective, and he's going down there to Mississippi dealing with he's a homicide detective, so he's dealing with techniques that they don't know down in Mississippi. He's really making them look stupid also, by the way. Now, the chief, played by Rod Steiger, Chief Gillespie, makes fun of the name Virgil and asks Virgil Tibbs what he is called in Mississippi. Sidney Poitier shoots back with a mixture of pride and barely contained rage. They Call Me Mr. Tibbs, which was the sequel movie to this one here, and it was called They Call Me Mr. Tibbs as well, but it wasn't as good as In the Heat of the Night. I saw that too. Now, in the movie's most startling sequence, the prominent owner of a cotton plantation slaps Virgil Tibbs for not knowing his place, and Virgil Tibbs slaps him back reflexively. Sidney Poitier wrote in his memoir, The Measure of a Man, in the year 2000, that it was his idea for Virgil Tibbs to return the slap. I call it the slap heard around the world. Sidney Poitier said, quote, "In the original script, I looked at him with great disdain and, wrapped in my strong ideas, walked out." That could have happened. So in the scene, originally in the script, Virgil Tibbs looks at Endicott. After Endicott slaps him, he looks at him with great disdain and walks out. Okay, that would, but no, this is 1967. Okay, no, so no, we're not gonna do that. So Sidney Poitier goes on and says that could have happened with another actor playing the part, but it couldn't happen with me. That could have happened with another actor playing the part, but it couldn't happen with me, end quote. Sidney Poitier insisted on a change to the script because of a searing experience as a teenager in Florida that Sidney Poitier had with police when police stopped him for walking in a white neighborhood. Sidney Poitier said, quote, "They really had their fun with me," he recalled in the book, The Measure of a Man. He said, "They put a pistol right to my forehead, and for 10 minutes, they just joked about whether to shoot me in the right eye or the left eye," end quote. As much as In the Heat of the Night secured his star luster, it was only one in a line of cinematic breakthroughs. In some of Sidney Poitier's finest films, he was a medical resident harassed by a racist Richard Widmark in No Way Out, 1950. Was a really young Sidney Poitier. He was an escape prisoner chained to a bigoted convict in Defiant Ones, opposite Tony Curtis. An ambitious chauffeur in A Raisin in the Sun, 1961. A play he also played in the 1959 Broadway play, and for which he received a Tony Award nomination. Okay, so read this one also from the Washington Post. Sidney Poitier, first black man to win Oscar for Best Actor, dies at 94. Okay, so I want to switch gears here quickly. We're going to go to clip 2, Shakita. I was on Roland Martin Unfiltered on Friday, January 7th. Roland did a big tribute to Sidney Poitier after we had a very short panel And he started, the show started late. The panel did not get a chance to talk about Sidney Poitier, so I did it here on my show. But what we did talk about, one of the things we did talk about was the sentencing of the 3 white men convicted of killing Ahmad Arbery. Okay, let's go to this clip, Shakita.
Of course, they could have gotten the death penalty as well, but the judge chose to sentence them again to life in prison without parole. Brian, of course, doesn't have a possibility of parole because he showed far more remorse and actually cooperated to more than the other 2 individuals. Joining us right now is Matt Manning, civil rights attorney. We have Kelly Bethea, communication strategist, also Michael Imhotep, host of African History Network. Matt, the judge opened this up by taking a moment of silence of 1 minute to say that was a portion of the time Ahmad Arbery was running for his life. It was a total of 5 minutes. As I listened to him, and then he read back the comments of Gregory and Travis McMichael. As he was doing that, I'm sitting here going, this judge is not going to play with these guys here. He clearly gave them essentially almost max penalty.
That's exactly right, Roland. And in the state of Georgia, a judge has a lot of latitude to determine whether someone's going to get parole or not get parole, on a homicide case. And I thought Judge Walmsley did a magnificent job of delineating a number of the comments. I mean, the fact that Mr. McMichael likened Mr. Arbery to a rat and talked about him being trapped like an animal underscores precisely what these men thought. They dehumanized them, and I think the judge was spot on, not only in his sentencing, but in delineating all of those quotes, because frankly, there are going to be people who say that he bent to the pressure and his sentence is representative of liberals and all these other people who are angry about this. But the reality is this was a callous murder. And they said as much in their statements to the police, and he went through each one of those methodically. So I thought he did a wonderful job with that, and I thought that this sentence was definitely reflective of the evidence. So I'm very, very pleased with the outcome.
Michael?
Yeah, Roland, I watched it live today, and when Judge Walmsley started out with 1 minute of silence to show how long 1 minute was, and Ahmad Arbery ran for his life for 5 minutes, I knew he was going to lower the boom on him. So, I think the sentencing was correct. I also thought that William Roddy Bryant would get a little lesser of a sentence. So he got life in prison with the possibility of parole, where the other 2 got life in prison without the possibility of parole. So, this is, I think this is a good sentencing, and we continue to fight this battle.
Okay, pause right there, Shakita. Okay. Those watching on Facebook and YouTube, keep watching for a few more minutes. I'm going to let you hear what happened in court dealing with the sentencing as well. If you like this type of information, you can support the African History Network, $, the AHN Show through Cash App, $, the AHN Show through Cash App, also through PayPal, paypal.me/the AHN Show. And we have the information at our website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. We're 6 days a week. This helps us keep doing the research, stay on the air, keep broadcasting, pay some of the bills, etc. You can register for my online courses at our website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. If you want me to do a presentation for your group or organization, email me at ahnshow@AfricanHistoryNetwork.com, ahnshow@AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. And special happy Founders Day to the brothers of Phi Beta Sigma Fraternity Incorporated. My fraternity, our Founders Day was yesterday, January 9th. Right now, it's correct wrong behavior. It's not over till we win. Wakanda forever. We'll talk to you tomorrow. Peace. All right, stand by. Okay, I want to go to let's go to this clip here. This is what happened in court.
Rest of their days behind bars.
A young man with dreams.
The father and son guilty of the 2020 murder of Ahmaud Arbery will spend the rest of their days behind bars.
A young man with dreams was gunned down in this community.
Judge Timothy Walmsley calling it accountability. For Greg and son Travis McMichael, a sentence of life without parole. And for neighbor William Bryant, a life sentence with the possibility of parole. The decision after hours of testimony, Ahmaud Arbery's parents describing broken hearts that will never heal.
Son, I love you as much today as I did today that you were born.
Attorneys for the defendants calling life without parole a punishment too severe.
Nothing in Travis McMichael's life suggests that he's a danger to society now or will be a danger to society 30 years from now.
In the end, Judge Walmsley pointed to the McMichaels' lack of remorse, even pausing to reflect on Ahmaud's final moments. The 25-year-old was out for a jog when he was chased, shot, and killed. The judge noted Brian, who did express remorse, earned a parole possibility because of it. As for Arbery's family, relief to see justice.
What will you go home with in your heart tonight?
The day that I laid Ahmad to rest, I told him that we will get justice. I have finally fulfilled that promise to Ahmad. We have justice for you. We got justice today.
Will you sleep soundly?
I will.
In Brunswick, Georgia, Katie Beck, NBC News.
All right. So great reporting there from NBC News. And it's a good segment we did on Roland Martin Unfiltered also. Okay, so check out this. So once again, the three men who were convicted. They were convicted on. So Travis McMichael was convicted on all 9 counts. Greg McMichael was convicted on I think it was 8 out of 9 counts, and William Roddy Bryan was convicted. He was convicted on 6 out of 9 counts. So they were sentenced to, and if we look at the article here from NBC News, 3 men convicted of murdering Ahmaud Arbery sentenced to life in prison. Okay, the 3 white men were found guilty of felony murder in November 2021 in the fatal shooting of Ahmaud Arbery. So the McMichaels got life in prison without the possibility of parole, and William Roddy Bryan got life in prison with the possibility of parole. William Bryan must serve at least 30 years in prison before he is eligible for parole. All right. All 3 men were convicted. Okay, they were convicted. They said that their attorney said they're going to appeal the conviction. Before announcing the sentence, the judge asked the courtroom to sit in silence for 1 minute to illustrate a fraction of the time Ahmaud Arbery was running in terror from the men before he was killed. Now, the sentences are in line with the request from prosecutor Linda Donikowski, who recommended that William Roddy Bryan, who's 52 years old, get a chance at parole, and that the McMichaels be denied the possibility of parole. It's also important to note, now we dealt with this in our coverage of this case. It's also important to note that Greg McMichaels and Travis McMichael, they were armed. William Roddy Bryan was not armed. He did not have a gun. That's something else that played. He showed remorse, but the other thing is, and this was something that was lost because I saw some of the reporting and they said all 3 had guns. No, they didn't. William Roddy Bryan did not have a gun. The other 2 did have guns. We dealt with that in our coverage of it. I'm watching some people on MSNBC and they were saying all 3 were armed. No, they weren't. That's not true. Now, prosecutor Linda Donikowski said the father and son showed no remorse or empathy for, quote, the trapped and terrified Ahmaud Arbery, end quote. There were so many opportunities to stop, to think, Linda Donikowski said, and there's the real problem. Greg McMichael was former law enforcement, and Travis McMichael has served in the Coast Guard. Travis McMichael talked about being, I think it was military police in the Coast Guard, and he talked about his law enforcement training and stuff like this. Okay, so Travis McMichael really damaged his case when he took the witness stand. So here we have some men who should have known better. Linda Dunikowski told the judge Friday morning at sentencing. She said, vigilantism always goes wrong. Vigilantism always goes wrong. Now, defense attorneys argued in favor of parole for all three men. An attorney for Travis McMichael said he should have the opportunity to show that he's grown, to show that he's changed. Okay, but to change, to show that you've changed, you actually have to change, but okay. The attorney Robert Rubin said a parole board should determine if and when Travis McMichael is released from prison. Gregory McMichael's attorney, Laura Hogue, asked the judge to consider that the 66-year-old did not intend for Ahmaud Arbery to die. Okay, Gregory McMichael, the father. All right. Now, William Bryan's attorney said his client was in a different position because he showed remorse and cooperated with police by turning over the cell phone video of the shooting. It's that cell phone video that exposed them and crucified them. Okay. But the other thing is another mitigating factor for Bryan was that he was not armed. Mr. Bryan isn't the one who brought a gun, said Kevin Gile, his defense attorney. Kevin Gile, we don't want any more black pastors here. That's Kevin Gile. Okay. We don't want any more black pastors or golf. He was unarmed, and I think that reflects his intentions. Okay. So read the rest of this article here. 3 men convicted of murdering Ahmaud Arbery sentenced to life in prison. I want to go back to the other part of this segment here from Roland Martin and Filter. We were short on time there on 9:10 a.m. Superstation WFDF. So just bear with me for a minute here while I cue this clip up. Let me back it up. Okay. We'll go to Kelly Bethia and then we'll come back to me.
Or nationally, internationally, as opposed to the horrific details of the last 5 minutes of his life.
Was also, I thought was interesting here was the fact that we're not at this point if Bryan doesn't and his attorney don't release that video. It was 3 months after the fact. You had multiple prosecutors who were covering up for them who declined to prosecute. They released the video. The mother was putting pressure. The father was putting pressure. The family and the attorneys were putting pressure for action. Bryan and his attorney then released the video thinking that was going to exonerate him. Mm-hmm. And it was that video which led to the Georgia Bureau of Investigation getting involved, which led to that happening, which led to them being indicted, them being convicted. So Bryan is going to spend a lot of time in prison, life with a possibility of parole for video him and his lawyers released.
Well, his lawyers made a very, very bad strategic mistake, but it was in the support of justice, right? So ultimately, thankfully, they made that mistake because otherwise this may not have been brought to light the way it was. There were people advocating, but, video evidence is the best evidence. And I think that's very important, especially because Judge Walmsley, again, when sentencing Mr. Bryan, talked about how he used his vehicle in the commission of this crime. So had they been a little smarter in their strategy, he may not be sitting there at the table, at least not indicted. But I'm glad that they released that video so he, too, could be held to account for his crimes.
Michael?
Roland, as Tiffany Cross would say, the caucasity of it. You actually think this video of Ahmaud Arbery being hunted down and executed, you think this is going to absolve you? This is, and it's important for us to understand this in the context of Georgia. Georgia is the state that has the largest Confederate monument anywhere in this country. It's called Stone Mountain. And the 1863 Georgia fugitive slave law that turned into this citizen's arrest law that they concocted after the fact, that was specifically designed for fugitive runaway slaves running away from Georgia plantations when Georgia was part of the Confederacy, running behind Union lines. It was targeting them. Okay, so just to think that this video of Ahmad being executed is somehow going to absolve
William Rodney Bryant, it just shows how stupid these people are.
Absolutely, Kelly. But again, thankfully, and it's unfortunate that if we didn't have that video, we're probably not here.
I mean, thank God for video, right? But also thank God for the shift in legal culture being that Black people deserve justice as well. Because if you just look at the optics of this entire case, you had a white prosecutor, white judge, white attorneys on the defense. If I'm not mistaken, majority white jury, and everything, maybe not even 20 years ago, had this case been tried 20 years ago, we would have had a very different result, even with all the evidence laid out. So the fact that we are now in a culture that is shifting, it is not perfect by any means, but it is shifting in the direction towards justice for everyone, which is really what the law is supposed to do in the first place. The irony being that these laws were not meant for Black people to thrive in, and yet here we are getting justice anyway.
Absolutely. All right, folks, got to go to a quick break. When we come back, we'll talk about the passing of Lonnie Guinier, the legendary civil rights attorney. She died today at the age of 71. And then we'll pay tribute to the great Sidney Poitier.
All right. Okay, so that was from Roland Martin Unfiltered from Friday, January 7th, 2022. All right, I'm usually at panelists each Friday. We hadn't been on the past. Well, he hadn't broadcasted the past 2 Fridays because of the holidays. Read this article here from fastcompany.com. So we've talked about this a number of times here on the show, and we dealt with the history of the citizens arrest law, especially the one in Georgia. The troubling history of citizens arrests from slave patrols to Ahmad Arbery to ICE. This is from July 20th, 2020 for, this is from July 20th, 2020 from fastcompany.com. All right. And it deals with 1863 also in Georgia. Georgia was part of the Confederacy. They weren't even part of the United States in 1863. They were part of the Confederacy when they passed that law targeting fugitive runaway slaves that became the citizens arrest law. All right. If you like this type of information, you can support the African History Network, $ the AHN Show through Cash App, $ the AHN Show through Cash App, also through PayPal, paypal.me/the AHN Show. And be sure to register for the online courses I teach on Saturdays and Sundays on the weekend. Ancient Kemet, the Moors, and the Ma'afa. Understand the transatlantic slave trade, what they didn't teach you in school. Ancient Kemet, the Moors, and the Ma'afa. Understanding the transatlantic slave trade, what they didn't teach you in school. And from the Civil War to the Civil Rights Movement and Black Power, 1865 to 1968. So we do the classes live. All the sessions are archived and recorded. You can go back and watch them anytime. Even a year from now, you can go back and watch the full class. From the Civil War to the Civil Rights Movement and Black Power, our next class is going to be Saturday, January 15th, 12 noon to 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And in this class, we deal with about a 10, 15, maybe 20-year period of history. We start in 1803 with the Louisiana Purchase, okay? And we deal with what leads up to the Civil War taking place. We have a special bundle pack right now. You can register for both classes for only $70. They're regularly $130 each. We do the sessions live. All the sessions are archived and recorded. You can watch from around the world. And then you'll also get Ancient Kemet, the Moors, and the Ma'afa, understanding the transatlantic slave trade, what they didn't teach you in school. So I'm going to post a link here again. Do a PowerPoint presentation. We have book references, articles, video clips, all that in the class. And I'm going to post this right here. Okay, the bundle. And it's on the homepage of our website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com also. All right, now, and then we have the my Black History Month 15 DVD bundle pack as well, right on the homepage. These are 15 of my lectures that I've done dealing with history. They're all in one bundle pack. It's on sale, $100. Okay, we'll post this link as well. It's right on the homepage of our website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. This is great for African American History Month or any time of the year, but especially African American History Month. And one of the presentations in the bundle pack deals with the origins of African American History Month as well. Okay, it deals with Dr. Carter G. Woodson. It deals with the origins of Black History Month, which now is known as African American History Month. It deals with the creation of the Association for the Study of Negro Life and History in 1915, September 9th, 1915. If you click right here, order here, it shows the 15 lectures, all done by me. Okay, I have about 40, I think it's maybe 45 of my presentations on DVD and digital downloads, but it shows you all the presentations. You can buy the presentations individually or in this bundle pack. So you get the almost 3-hour lecture I did dealing with the film Black Panther, and I show how the film Black Panther relates to African history, African culture, African language, African spiritual systems. Black Panther is a deep movie on multiple levels. I did about 3 months of research to be able to do the lectures that I do on the film Black Panther. Okay, I did some deep research on the film and the comic book. Okay, so you get this one right here. You also get, let me back up here. This is a 3-hour presentation, and most of these are PowerPoint presentations I'm doing there. So the visual, video clips, tons of references for you to research this information as well. This deals with the history of African American History Month, and I also deal with dispelling myths about our history as well. Breaking the Chains, why we celebrate African American History Month, exposing the myths. Okay, breaking the chains, why we celebrate African American History Month, exposing the myths. Contrary to popular belief, white people did not give us Black History Month. That was something we created. Okay, out of self-determination, the second principle of the Nguzo Saba Kujichagulia, self-determination, seventh principle in Kwanzaa, second principle in Kwanzaa of the 7 principles. We created that. And I still hear people today say white people gave us Black History Month and we got the shortest month of the year and all this stuff. Well, number one, the reason why it's in February is because the birth dates of Abraham Lincoln and Frederick Douglass are in February. February 12th for Abraham Lincoln, and the assumed birth date of Frederick Douglass is February 14th, because Douglass didn't know his date of birth, and he didn't know exactly which year he was born. He said it was either 1817 or 1818. So there were already celebrations that African Americans had back at that time in that second week in February surrounding those birth dates. Okay, so Dr. Carter G. Woodson puts his new cultural celebration within that period of time because there were already celebrations going on. White people didn't give us that. We created that. But as I say in many of my presentations, if you just have to have 30 days to celebrate Black History Month, you just have to have 30 days for it to feel legitimate to you, you do realize you can still celebrate Black History Month March 1st and March 2nd, right? If you just have to have 30 days just to feel legitimate, just to feel like a whole person, you can still celebrate March 1st and March 2nd. There's no law saying you can't do it. So, okay. This one right here, Malcolm X, 50 years later. Why is he still relevant? I need to put a thumbnail up for that one also. So this deals with Malcolm's life, but it also deals with his impact on conscious hip hop as well in the late 80s, early 90s. I did this June 24th, 2017 in Lansing, Michigan. Okay. And Lansing, Michigan is one of the cities Malcolm X lived in. He lived in East Lansing and also in Lansing, East Lansing, Michigan, and also Lansing, Michigan. So you get this one also. And then I have a presentation dealing with the revolutionary Dr. King, not the Dr. King they like to show us on the television every Dr. King Day. This one here, and we know Dr. King Day is coming up, and I'm speaking at a college in West Virginia on Dr. King Day, my first time speaking in West Virginia. That should be interesting because Donald Trump won West Virginia by 40 points in 2016 and 2020. But I'm speaking at the Dr. King Day celebration that the Black Student Union is doing at this college in West Virginia. I wonder if I'm going to see Joe Manchin while I'm there in West Virginia. It'd be interesting to have some words, some things I want to say to Joe Manchin. But the distortion of the legacy of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., the revolutionary, will not be televised on the television. The distortion of the legacy of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., the revolutionary, will not be televised on the television. So I deal with the revolutionary Dr. King, not the Dr. King that they want to show us every Dr. King Day. I deal with the Dr. King who tried to get a concealed pistol license in Montgomery, Alabama, 1956, during the Montgomery bus boycott. And we know Dr. King's house was firebombed twice in 1956 also. You know, I deal with the Dr. King who meets with the Honorable Elijah Muhammad February 24th, 1966. A lot of people don't know that. Dr. King and Coretta Scott King go to Elijah Muhammad's house in Chicago, almost 1 year to the date after Malcolm was assassinated, February 21st, 1965. Dr. King goes and meets with Elijah Muhammad. Now, this one here, lessons from the film Black Panther, economic guerrilla warfare, political self-defense, and how to Wakanda the vote. This one, what I do is I look at how do we take the enthusiasm, okay, of the film Black Panther. How do we take that enthusiasm and use it for economic empowerment and political empowerment, right? And how we take themes from the film Black Panther and use it for that. Lessons from the film Black Panther, economic guerrilla warfare and political self-defense, and how to Wakanda the vote. And Wakanda the vote was an actual campaign that a group of African-American women put together opening weekend that Black Panther debuted in February 2018. And they had volunteers who went out to the movie theaters to talk to African Americans who were going to see the film Black Panther, to talk to them about politics, to talk to them about issues that concerned them and how politics related to the issues that concerned them, to elevate their conscious level, to understand why the vote is important, why it's important to vote and vote strategically. That's called Wakanda the vote. That was an actual campaign. Those are things I deal with in that presentation. Now, this one here, the Three-Fifths Compromise of 1787, and the Electoral College and slavery. This breaks down the Three-Fifths Compromise, Article 1, Section 2, Clause 3 of the U.S. Constitution, and the Electoral College, how the Electoral College works as well. It's not the Electoral College. There's no I in the word. It's Electoral College. I also deal with the 12th Amendment of 1803 that modified the Electoral College as well. All right. Now, we also deal with this one here. This presentation, 13 Forms of Wealth. This deals with entrepreneurship and economic empowerment. 13 Forms of Wealth. Keys to entrepreneurship, economic empowerment. Okay, because I taught entrepreneurship for 7 years. So you get this one, and we deal with some famous African-American entrepreneurs, and we deal with 13 key traits that successful African-American entrepreneurs need to have. This one here, the racist history of the white national anthem and the Pledge of Allegiance. I deal with the history of the Pledge of Allegiance and the national anthem, and deal with Francis Scott Key, who wrote the what was known as the defense of Fort McHenry, okay, September 1814, during the War of 1812. And then it's going to become known as the Star Spangled Banner and becomes adopted as the national anthem. So I deal with that history, and also the history of the Pledge of Allegiance, written in 1892 by a Methodist minister, a socialist Methodist minister named Francis Bellamy. He's a Baptist minister, socialist Baptist minister named Francis Bellamy. Okay, he was a socialist. So all these Republicans, they want to talk about the Pledge of Allegiance, they probably don't know a socialist wrote it. Wouldn't they be surprised? They'll probably stop saying the Pledge of Allegiance if they knew that a socialist wrote it, but Donald Trump has already started saying the Pledge of Allegiance because he didn't know the words to it. So, but we deal with this, and then I tie all that into Colin Kaepernick's protests and deal with the origins of Colin Kaepernick's protests. I tie all those together. All right, now, okay, so you get that one as well. This is a double lecture I did with my friend Dr. David Imhotep, who wrote the book, The First Americans Were Africans, Documented Evidence. We did a double lecture here in Detroit a few years ago. So he dealt with research for his book, and I dealt with Great African Women in History, the Mothers of Civilization. This is a 4-hour presentation right here, Redistributing the Pain, How African Americans Fought Back with Economic Boycotts. And Redistributing the Pain comes from Dr. King's last speech, April 3rd, 1968, where he talked about redistributing the pain to those inflicting pain upon us. He talked about economic withdrawal strategies. He said we have to always anchor our external direct action with the power of economic withdrawal. So in this presentation, what I do is we look at some actual historical examples of us using different types of economic withdrawal strategies to fight back against white supremacy. And I still can't figure out, like I was watching Insay Ufa today from the New Georgia Project on MSNBC, and I was watching from Black Voters Matter. Well, I actually saw both of them, Latasha Brown and Cliff Albright. Cliff Albright was on Roland Martin Unfiltered. Latasha Brown was on MSNBC. I think she was on with Joanne Reed. And out of the three of them, love them all, but none of them talked about putting economic pressure on corporations who in July of 2021 signed on to a letter supporting the passing of the John Lewis Voting Rights Act. NBCnews.com had this article. We talked about this, as well as the one that came out from New York Times a few days ago that dealt with how 717 corporations have donated $18 million to 143 of the 147 traitors Republicans who voted not to certify the 2020 presidential elections. That was a big article from the New York Times. We talked about it on my January 6th show, commemorating when we dealt with the insurrection, the 1-year anniversary of the insurrection. Okay, we talked about that on the January 6th show. So if you missed the January 6th show, I'll go back and watch that because we got deep into all of this. This one right here. This is from the New York Times, January 6, 2022. Let me pull this one up. Corporations donated millions to lawmakers who voted to overturn election results. January 6, 2022. 1 year after the Capitol riot, many businesses resumed corporate donations to lawmakers who voted against certifying the 2020 election. So wait a second. So you got these white corporations that are continuing to finance these domestic terrorist sympathizers and continuing to finance Republicans who voted to nullify the African-American vote and not certify the 2020 election results. Now, all the activists, I love them. I love them. I don't understand why they're not talking about this. I understand it. We should be putting economic pressure on these people. April 3rd, because I hear people keep talking about Dr. King, but Dr. King said we have to always anchor our external direct action with the power of economic withdrawal. An article dealing with this a few years ago. Why did Dr. King tell us to redistribute the pain, understanding the power of economic withdrawal? You can read it at AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. Just click on read articles by Michael Imhotep. So I don't understand why they're not talking about this. If I know this with my meager resources, I don't understand why they're not pushing this. A report published this week by Citizens for Responsibility and Ethics in Washington, a nonprofit watchdog group, showed how corporate money, let's increase the size of this because I don't want people to say, "Oh, I couldn't see it. You know, my eyes are bad," or something. No, I want everybody to see this. Okay. Other organizations, this is what we should be focused on, because I hear people saying, "Okay, we want this. We want the Voting Rights Act passed," and blah blah blah. But oftentimes we don't understand how to leverage our economics to enforce our political agenda. We have to leverage our economics to enforce our political agenda. And one of the things I really don't understand is how you have people who say, okay, so if Democrats don't do this, we ain't gonna vote. Which to me is dumb as hell. That means you really didn't want it in the first damn place. Because first and foremost, the obstructionists are Republicans. First and foremost, the obstructionists are Republicans. And you can go to congress.gov and all these bills that people say that they want, the John Lewis Voting Rights Act, George Floyd Justice Policing Act, whatever it is, reparations, it tells you who voted for the bill and who voted against the bill. Overwhelmingly, the only people that vote for the bill are Democrats. Overwhelmingly, the only people that vote for these bills are Democrats. So what I don't understand is how the hell you going to let the obstructionists take back control of the House and the Senate who keep voting against your own interests? I don't even understand stuff like that. Almost cussed. I don't even understand stuff like that. It makes no sense whatsoever. The only people, the John Lewis Voting Rights Act passed the House of Representatives in August of 2021 by a vote of 219 to 211. All the Republicans in the House voted against the bill. You gonna let those people take back control of the House who keep voting against your own interests? The George Floyd Justice and Policing Act passed the House of Representatives March 3rd, 2021 by a vote of 220 to 212. The only people that voted for the bill were Democrats. And the one Republican that voted for the bill put out a tweet and said he made a mistake and accidentally voted for the bill. He was going to change his vote. No Republicans voted for the bill. You're going to let those people take back control of the House? You must not want it in the first place. You can't want it, and you're going to let these people, these traitors, these domestic terrorists who voted against certifying the vote to undermine the African-American vote, you're going to let those people take back control of the House? Obviously, you didn't want the shit in the first place. If you're going to let them keep voting against your own interests and then let them take back control of the House and the Senate, you obviously didn't want it. I don't understand stuff like this. Maybe you do. I don't. We have to leverage our economics to enforce our political agenda. You have to force this through. This is understanding what happens after the vote. A lot of our people don't understand what happens after the vote, holding people accountable and also blocking people who are trying to do you harm and vote against your own interests. This is why I know that I keep people hearing people say you got to put more pressure on Joe Biden. Joe Biden. Okay. Number one, last time I checked, Senator Chuck Schumer controlled the Senate. Joe Biden doesn't control the Senate. The Senate is the legislative branch of government. Joe Biden's in the executive branch of government. Joe Biden can meet with senators. Senators don't work for Joe Biden. Are you serious? Senator Joe Manchin is from Wisconsin. West Virginia. Wisconsin has dumbass Ron Johnson. Senator Ron Johnson, conspiracy theorist Ron Johnson just announced today he's going to run for a third term. He needs to be crushed. Senator Ron Johnson, Republican, the conspiracy theorist Ron Johnson of Wisconsin needs to be crushed, totally humiliated in this midterm election. But that's another story. Donald Trump won West Virginia by 40 points in 2016 and 2020. In 2020, I think Joe Biden got about 29% of the vote in West Virginia. West Virginia is a red state. African Americans only make up 3.5% of the population in West Virginia. This is why I've said before, and I posted, I was watching Roland Martin Unfiltered today, and none of them mentioned economic pressure on corporations. I still don't understand this shit. I don't understand. I don't understand this. I've said before, as much as I love John Lewis was one of my frat brothers. Never met him. Saw him at a distance when I was at the CBC Weekend, broadcasting for the Empowerment Radio Network back in 2016. As much as I love John Lewis, I've said this before. You've heard me say this before. I posted this on Roland Martin Unfiltered today when it aired at 6 o'clock on Facebook. You go back, if you watch the broadcast that originally aired at 6 o'clock, you see my post there. I said it was a tactical mistake to name the Voting Rights Act after John Lewis. Now, I know he wrote the majority of the bill, but you got to get that bill passed through the Senate. There's only 2.5 black people in the entire U.S. Senate, and one of them, and the reason why I say half, is because Senator Tim Scott, Black Tea Party Republican from South Carolina, half the time he doesn't act like he's black. Tim Scott's not voting for the John Lewis Voting Rights Act. You know who I would have named the bill after? Understanding white people and understand how many white people in the Senate. There's only 2.5 black people in the Senate. Senate is not the House of Representatives. Okay? The overwhelming majority of the members of the Congressional Black Caucus are in the House of Representatives because a House district is 710,000 people. Whereas as a senator, you have to run statewide and you represent millions of people in the state. Okay? The structure of the Senate is different than the House of Representatives. I would have named the bill after Susan B. Anthony. Why? Well, she was a racist. She ain't like black people. Well, hell, I don't like her either. We're trying to get a damn bill passed. What do you want? This ain't a popularity contest. We need to get the bill passed. I would have named the bill after Susan B. Anthony or some other white suffrage activist. She's the one that comes to mind right now. She's the most prominent one that I could think of. Why? Because when you name the bill after Susan B. Anthony, you put the 19th Amendment to the U.S. Constitution front and center. People keep making this a black issue. I'm saying, damn, you must want to lose or delay winning. Because if they name the bill after Susan B. Anthony, as opposed to naming it after John Lewis, now you put white women's voting rights and you put women's voting rights, but especially white women's voting rights front and center and show that white women's voting rights are in jeopardy. You put the 19th Amendment to the U.S. Constitution in 1920 front and center, as opposed to focusing on the 15th Amendment to the U.S. Constitution. Because you have to broaden who this deals with and who is in jeopardy of losing ground. It's not just African Americans. It's white women, it's white college students, it's Latinos, things like this. When you put John Lewis's name on the bill, and I love John Lewis. John Lewis wrote the majority of the bill. I understand that. But Joe Manchin wrote a lot of the Freedom to Vote Act. They ain't naming after Joe Manchin. I'm like, you got to understand white people and understand you got to get this bill passed. African Americans only make up a small percentage of Arizona where Christian cinema is. Now, Christian cinema, if you named it after Susan B. Anthony, as opposed to trying to make this a black issue, but focus on actually getting the bill passed. Now, Christian cinema, you go tell those white women you're not going to stand up for their voting rights. That ain't going to happen. Now, Joe Manchin, you go tell white women in West Virginia that you're not going to stand up and protect their voting rights. See, as long as it's put into a black category, you can push it off to the side. I'm like, damn, yo, I don't understand this. We have to understand long-range planning and understand strategy in actually getting the bill passed in the House, in the Senate, and getting it signed into law. I would have named the bill after Susan B. Anthony. But that's just how I think. I'm thinking we have to understand to the finish line. This is a sprint. This is a marathon, not a sprint. This is a marathon, not a sprint. This is why I'm listening to people and they keep talking about black this, black that. I'm like, damn, you must not want this stuff to pass. Go to Senate.gov and look at the people in the U.S. Senate. There's only 2 black people in the Senate that vote for this stuff. Senator Cory Booker and Senator Raphael Warnock. Senator Tim Scott of South Carolina Republic, he don't vote for this stuff that we advocate for. I'm like, okay, well, that's what you want to do. Okay. Let me go back to this. Now I got to get out of here. I have work to do. So, but once again, go to congress.gov. And it's like, I watch MSNBC and I'm looking at these people up here getting paid. I don't get paid to do none of this stuff, most of it. Sometimes a few speaking engagements I get a couple $100 to get paid for that. And I'm listening to them and I'm like, why aren't they saying this? I don't understand this. It's just like I was watching today. I watched the Misha Cross. Well, I know what Misha, we're panelists. Sometimes we're rolling them out in their filter. I watched the Misha on the Black News Channel. I'm watching all this coverage of the speech Biden is going to give tomorrow in Georgia. Now, one person mentioned the virtual meeting that Joe Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris had with key Democratic senators who are against changing the filibuster. That was before they went on recess. Coming out of that meeting, Senator Maggie Hassan of New Hampshire, who's a Democrat who was against changing the filibuster, came out of that meeting and said we have to change the filibuster. And she went on she went on Rachel Maddow's show, and it's at MSNBC.com. Just search for Senator Maggie Hassan, and she told Rachel, said we got to change the filibuster. That was on a Thursday. That Wednesday, there was a meeting. We talked about it here on this show. The civil rights organizations had with key Democratic senators that Senator Gary Peters of Michigan, one of my senators, that Senator Gary Peters organized. Senator John Hickenlooper of Colorado was in that meeting. And these were Democratic senators who were against changing the filibuster. And I can understand part of it because nobody wants to say, I keep watching this stuff and nobody's saying this. Democrats use the filibuster or the threat of the filibuster a number of times during the Trump administration to block harmful bills from Republicans. I don't understand why nobody's saying this. Am I the only one that reads the Washington Post? I don't understand this. Senator John Hickenlooper of Colorado came out of that meeting and tweeted, we have to change the filibuster to be able to get this voting rights bill passed. These are, because it's not two Democratic senators who are against changing the filibuster. It's like 8 or 9 of them. And there's progress being made with them because they're seeing how dire the situation is, and they're seeing what's coming out of the January 6th committee and the plot that's being exposed and how intricate the plot was that's being exposed that the January 6th committee is exposing. And they're like, oh, hell no. They said, we got to change this. I hear people say, well, they changed the filibuster. I was watching Roland Martin Unfiltered today. Roland Martin Unfiltered and Joe Madison, the Black Eagle, is on. He's on the 64th day of a fast. Hunger strike. Drawing attention to voting rights, things like this. And they said, well, they passed a bill to raise the debt limit. They did a carve out to the filibuster to get the debt limit passed. But nobody's saying that 14 Republicans voted along with it. That's why they did it. It wasn't Democrats alone that did that. No, what happened was, we talked about this here on this show. 14 Republicans voted along with the Democrats to allow to do a carve out to the filibuster, to allow the Democrats to raise the debt limit, because Republicans in the midterm elections then want to turn around and blame Democrats for raising the debt limit. That's why they did it. I'm listening to people I guess they're supposed to know what they're talking about because they're on TV, and they're not saying this. It's like, how the hell do I know this? 14 GOP senators, CNN.com, 14 GOP senators broke a filibuster to advance debt limit fast track process. It wasn't Democrats alone that voted on this. It was 14 Republicans that voted the week before the debt limit was raised. Why did they do it? They did it so they could then blame Democrats in the midterm elections for raising the filibuster. Now, this article is from December 9th, 2021. The Senate voted on Thursday to advance a bill to create a fast track process allowing Democrats to raise the federal debt limit. a crucial next step as lawmakers race the clock to avert a catastrophic debt default. All right. So the vote tally. So to get there, the plan's supporters needed to break a GOP filibuster, which required 64 votes to succeed. The vote tally was 64 to 36, meaning 14 Senate Republicans crossed the aisle to vote with Democrats, who control only 50 seats in the chamber. Because as I keep explaining to people, a 50-50 slim majority in the Senate is not the same thing as a 60-40 majority in the Senate. Most of these bills, it takes 60 votes to get passed. Democrats don't have that. And you're dealing with outright obstructionist Republicans. These are the 14 Senate Republicans who crossed the aisle to vote to advance the debt limit track process. Now, check this out. They voted. You have 14 Republicans who voted to advance the debt limit, to break the filibuster. 14 Republicans voted to break the filibuster, but none of the Republicans voted to actually raise the debt limit. Game recognizes game. The Republicans did this so they could then blame Democrats in the 2022 midterm election for raising the debt limit. Because when the actual vote came to actually raise the debt limit, it was only Democrats that voted to raise the debt limit. John Thune of South Dakota. Mitch McConnell was one of the 14 Republicans that voted. Mitch McConnell is shrewd. So when I hear people saying, oh, well, they broke the filibuster to raise the debt limit. No, you ain't saying why they did it. You're not saying why Republicans did it. Shelley Moore Capito is the other senator from West Virginia. She's a Republican. Shelley Moore Capito, a lot of people don't even know who the hell Shelley Moore Capito is. She's the other senator from West Virginia. She's a Republican. West Virginia is a very red state. It's a poor ass state also. It's a poor ass state also, which explains a lot too. Read the rest of this. We talked about this. Lisa Murkowski of Alaska. Lisa Murkowski was the only senator that voted for the John Lewis Voting Rights Act, and that was just a procedural vote to a debate on the Senate floor. She's the only one that voted for that bill. Republican. No, Senator Tim Scott didn't even vote for the John Lewis Voting Rights Act. This is what I don't understand. So you're going to let these obstructionist Republicans stop you from what you say that you want? I don't even understand that. You must not want it. All right. At our website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com, we're talking about this DVD bundle pack. Redistribute the pain, how African Americans fought back with economic boycotts. It's a 4-hour presentation. We go through and document historical examples of using economic withdrawal strategies to fight back against white supremacy and racism. This one here, this is part of the 15 DVD bundle pack that's on sale, $100, Black History Month bundle pack. These are all lectures I've done. Human Guinea Pig, the history of the Tuskegee experiment of untreated syphilis in the Negro male. Now, I separate fact from fiction. It's not none of this BS you see floating around in memes and things like this. Okay. There were 600 men in the study. They did not inject it with syphilis. I don't know where people got that nonsense from. No, they didn't. There were 600 men in the study. 399 of the men had an early form of syphilis called latent syphilis. I actually did research on this. The other 201 men did not have syphilis at all. They were the control group. When you do experiments, you have a control group. The control group you don't expose to the stimuli. The group that's exposed to the stimuli, you compare the two. It was supposed to last for 6 to 9 months, ended up lasting 40 years. Great African Women in History, the Mothers of Civilization. It's actually a 4-hour presentation. It's 2 DVD set. We deal with some well-known and not so well-known African women in our history from all different time periods. Now, this one right here, I did this for children. I was presenting to 50, or I think it's 60, 5th through 12th graders and their teachers. We did this at the Charles H. Wright Museum of African American History, a Black Panther analysis for children. And I'm showing how to use the film Black Panther, how it relates to African history and culture, things like this, how they can use it to teach our history. This one right here, if we knew this information in 2016 before the election, we would have stopped Trump. African American resistance in the era of Donald Trump, voter suppression, reparations, and how elections have consequences. And then this 3-hour presentation deals with the origins of the pre-Christian origins of Christmas, ancient Kemet, the winter solstice, and the history of Christmas. All right, so that's part of the 15 DVD bundle pack. It's on sale $100 right now. AfricanHistoryNetwork.com is right on the homepage, so you can order that. We'll post a link here again. All right, look, we have to get out of here. African American business owners, post the name of your business here on the thread of the broadcast. Email us at AHNShow@AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. Email us at AHNShow@AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. We'll let you know how you can advertise with the African History Network. Current promotion is buy 1 month, get 2 months free. All right. We focus on educating, empowering, and inspiring people of African descent throughout the diaspora and around the world. Right now, it's correct your own behavior. It's not over till we win. Wakanda forever. We'll talk to you tomorrow. Peace. iRedify is a Black-owned digital platform that showcases Black and Brown cultures and people. The books on the platform are written by African American authors, Afro-Caribbean authors, African authors, and so much more. Kids 14 and under can read ebooks, listen to audiobooks, and complete learning activities. Kids can even write in the books digitally. Get unlimited access to everything on the platform for only $8.99 a month at iRedify.com. Sign up for your membership today.
What does self-care mean to you? To us, it's an opportunity to reconnect with nature. A chance to create something remarkable. At Sage and Elm Apothecary, our handcrafted skincare and household products immerse you in Earth's sweetest nectar, connecting you to nature in a way you never imagined. See for yourself and visit us at sageandelmapothecary.com.
Mental health and well-being have long been a taboo subject in the so-called African American community. So I enlisted the help of mental health experts, thought leaders, and activists to help kill the ghost of Willie Lynch and heal from post-traumatic slave syndrome.
We experience trauma a lot of times on a subconscious level. So sometimes something happens to us and we know that it's traumatizing, but we don't really recognize the extent of the trauma.
Come and travel with me to a time long ago and place far away. You will experience high adventure and excitement. You are fighting alongside an ancient army in fierce battle. Feel the exhilaration of struggle and final conquest. My name is Menenkere, and I am both a prince and a priest in one of the most advanced civilizations humans have ever produced. I want you to ride with me in my chariot as I slay the barbarians who have come to invade my land. I invite you to sit at the conference table with the great Pharaoh Taharka and his ministers as they plan intrigue and use subterfuge to outmaneuver and defeat the enemy. Come back with me to the land of your ancestors, to the beautiful land of Kemet. So open the pages of this book and begin the adventure. Find out what happens in the book Menenkere Battles the Assyrians in the Nile Valley from author Makari Jones. Get your copy today at Amazon.com.
Soul in Motion, celebrating 38 years in the arts. This energetic ensemble of dancers and drummers was started by percussionist Michael Friend and is led by choreographer Associate Director Pam Lassiter. Based in the Washington, D.C. area, Soul in Motion is now accepting bookings for Black History Month, Juneteenth, and summer festivals in 2022. Soul in Motion is also available for more intimate events like naming ceremonies and weddings. To find out more or to book your date, call 240-452-1349 or send an email to info@soulinmotion.org. Be sure to check us out on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. Soul in Motion, celebrating our history, our culture, our future. Soul in Motion. Theater, African dance, and drumming since 1984.
African Spirit Cards specialize in the design and printing of high-quality African-centered note cards and stationery. African Spirit Cards breeds and rejoices in the African and African American experiences. They honor our African heritage in all that they do for you by proudly displaying the great motifs and ornamentations of the African world diaspora. They use African images, African proverbs, and many African languages to fully immerse their clients in the wisdom and history of and the connection to Africa. They understand the importance of having images around us that reflect who we are. These images also illustrate where we came from and what we desire to be. They are here to serve you. Follow them on Instagram at African Spirit Cards, that's African with a K. They have a wide selection. Check out their holiday selection at etsy.com/shop/African Spirit Cards. That's Etsy, ETSY. You can give them a call at 313-995-3579, 313-995-3579. You can email them at janeldesigns@africanspiritcards.com. That's JANAL designs@africanspiritcards.com and place your order today.
Black on Purpose Television Network. Yes, Black on Purpose Television Network. All black, all positive, all the time. The largest black-owned streaming television network in the world, bringing our people together worldwide. Controlling our messages, our stories,